And so she's back. We're happy to have her back. So now I'd like to call Shannon Moore up to the podium for her presentation.
Thanks, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today. The presentations this morning were good for the soul. It kind of felt like church, and also like church, as I told Ava earlier. It took about an extra hour. I'm here to talk about the environmental justice efforts that we're making in Frederick County. So you might not think about Frederick County from an environmental justice perspective, but we have environmental justice communities just like everywhere. Our overburdened and underserved populations have disproportionate air and water pollution, adverse health outcomes, language barriers, and less financial and other resources to bounce back from crises. They're overburdened by pollution and they're underserved by investment. And climate issues, as was noted this morning, they hit home, they hit homes. Climate multiplies problems. So we have heard about this all day today. Flooding, heat, poor air quality, utility affordability, and the list goes on. Our efforts in Frederick County on climate equity are designed to ensure that all of our residents, regardless of their background or income, have the information, opportunities, and resources needed for resilience to a changing climate. But what does that actually mean? So for us, it means making sure that we're integrating in with our communities and that we're having a reckoning at this time to understand what's happening in the communities and how they have not been served in the past and how that contributes to problems today and how that's going to contribute to even worse problems in the future if we don't do something about it together. And so some of the kinds of programs that we have already and that we've had for a long time include our Power Saver Retrofits program, where we help with weatherization of homes, our environmental justice air monitoring program, where we go into communities and we look at the hyperlocal effects of air quality on our communities. We have solar initiatives that help people to be able to afford solar, and we also go out into communities and talk to them about the different kinds of impacts that we have, and we get their input. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how that we do that. One of our programs is called the Green Homes Program. We recently won an award from the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments for Climate and Energy Leadership. This program is designed to reach out to those that are most vulnerable and to help them to be able to communicate to us what their issues are and to get support. So that Green Compass program that's part of Green Homes is a navigator program where we're interacting with individual households and finding out what their needs are. And I can tell you, you're aware of what these needs are already. A lot of them are utility affordability, and that's the biggest one, and then flooding. So our effort connects residents to available resources. We reduce barriers, we provide one-on-one assistance, we make sustainability meaningful, and we help to build a green community with that. But how do we do that kind of work? Well, partnerships. We have a lot of partnerships in Frederick County, and this is something that we focused on a tremendous amount. Our partnerships have helped us to do things like create a Building Community Together work group of organizations like Habitat for Humanity and Interfaith Housing and a lot of local governments to be able to address housing problems across the board and to be able to make sure that we're not leaving people in the gaps. So we work on individual cases as well as programs with a lot of different organizations and entities. We also have partnered with Centro Hispano and Asian American Center of Frederick to help us to reach out to people that are traditionally left out of the conversation about what's happening in communities from a climate perspective and how they can be served. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. We've worked with Mobilize Frederick, which is a community-based organization that is working on climate resilience issues. They helped us to develop our climate response and resilience report back in 2022, and they've now turned into a nonprofit that is helping us to execute climate programs, including those in the schools. Partnerships are critical. I can't say enough about them. Without partnerships, we really don't have anything. And with our partners, we have the ability to address the challenges of the future. Another partnership that we're doing is with our emergency management folks at the county, where they're helping us to address flooding issues for the most vulnerable. We've used MDE's environmental justice mapping tools to understand where people are most vulnerable to flooding issues and where they're overburdened and underserved. We've overlain that with some of our maps about where we have upland flooding, where we have open water rescues, who's being most affected by this, and who has the least resilience to bounce back. One of the things I want to talk about in particular is accessibility. Accessibility means understanding that your audiences are going to respond to different messages and in different places, and that you have to reach out to them. You just can't expect them to come to you. And so one of the things that we've done with accessibility is translated all of our core materials into Spanish. Spanish is the second highest language spoken in Frederick County. The third highest is Burmese. We've also done a lot of outreach with our partners to their organizations where they have affiliated communities that they work with. And in this era where there's so little trust, and for good reason, for example, our immigrant communities are terrified of government right now. It's very difficult to reach out to them. We work with organizations that are working with those folks every day and trying to uplift those communities, and we pay them so that it's worth their time to participate. The other thing that we have to understand is that a lot of the folks that we're trying to reach, they're already overburdened, which means that they're working extra hours. They don't have the time to be able to contribute to some of the things that we would like to get their input on. And so that makes it very important for us to look at things like paying people to contribute by helping to offset their transportation costs or their child care costs or lost wages. That's something that we've been working on. And I will note that one of the grants that we had to do that was taken back by the Trump administration this year. We lost $3 million in grants for environmental justice by the Trump administration. But reaching out to people where they're at and listening to them from where they are and understanding that your priorities intersect theirs, they don't supersede theirs, I think is a takeaway. We have environmental justice and equity at the core of our climate planning. Frederick County and the City of Frederick published our first joint climate and energy action plan back in October, and that was an extensive outreach campaign that we did for that. The picture that you see here is Centro Hispano. I think that's their Earth Day. We met with them and their senior citizen group and talked to them about what their priorities were for climate. And one of the things that they told us was open space. We already had a list of things that we thought were important to the community, but we learned a lot by actually listening to them, and I think that that's really important. The other thing I think is really important is that of the survey responses that we got, about 10% of them were Spanish-speaking surveys. So that was really helpful for us to learn from the different communities about what their needs were. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I'm going to turn it over to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It's so impressive what's happening in Frederick County. I'd like to call up Mayor Miller from District Heights for a few remarks. Thank you, Mayor Miller.
Thank you for having me. Today is very important. This is our first summit on climate change. And for me, it is very important because when I became a commissioner through the Chesapeake Bay Trust, they had a grant for cigarette litter. And you don't realize how dangerous and toxic the cigarette butts are for our animals and our birds. And so we were able to launch a program to eliminate the cigarette butts. So on our campus at District Heights, we have no smoking at all. You can't even go outside. You go off the campus. So that was very important. And also, they had a pet waste station grant. At the time, I had a dog walking through the neighborhood and did not have a place to place the dog waste. So we know that is also toxic. So we were able to get at least 10 pet waste stations throughout the city of District Heights. So we started very early thinking about sustainability. And at this time, I do want to give a shout out to Nicole Jackson, who is our sustainable chair for the great city of District Heights. She has been wonderful in bringing new ideas, grant opportunities to make sure that our community understand climate change, sustainability, greening. One of our most important and meaningful environmental projects was the tree canopy. And if you've been through the city of District Heights, we have some older trees, but we lacked a lot of trees on Kipling Parkway. And we are a walkable city, so we have a lot of children and families and pets walking our city, so we realized we needed that tree canopy. So through the Prince George's County Department of Environment, the city is participating in Project Elevate, which brought the opportunity to bring 800 new trees to the great city of District Heights. That's what partnership is all about. We also approved the installation of a 12-foot American holly as a signature tree and held a community celebration to mark the start of planting season. And that was through the Department of Environment. And that tree, that holly tree, is planted at our Veterans Park. So if you come up Kipling Parkway, either way, left or right, you'll see that beautiful tree. The planting efforts will start actually this month, and we are committed to cooling our neighborhoods, improving air quality, and reducing stormwater runoff, and preparing our city to better withstand the effects of climate change. It was a major step forward, one that brings both environmental and community benefits for years to come. And I'm going to close with a faith-based partnership. Back in September, we had ASEZ WAO of the World Mission Society Church of God for a large-scale cleanup of our wooded areas throughout the city of District Heights, even our streams. There were 80 young people that came ready to pick up trash. We were so honored, and it was a perfect example of getting our young people involved in picking up trash, learning how to plant plants, learning how to plant your food. It was just amazing just to see the boots on the ground and making sure that we can carry on, even though we didn't see a lot of the trash visibly walking through the city or driving. But when you went into our woods, it was a whole nother look. And so we were just so grateful to have them. And for that cleanup, it wasn't a one-off event. It was a model for how partnerships can help us preserve our green spaces and engage young adults in long-term stewardship. So we're always looking for partners, but thank you for having me here. And at the local level, we always have boots on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Miller, for those inspiring words. And I'd like to call up Miss Ava Richardson from Baltimore City. Take it away, Ava.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for bearing with us now that this particular panel got pushed to lunch. But, you know, as Shannon said, we kind of went to church this morning. So can the church say amen? And so like any good church service, I want to tell you a couple of stories. And these stories really reflect the vision that we have for a more sustainable, a more equitable, and a more resilient city in Baltimore City. But as a Prince George's County native, I can't say how proud I am of all the progress that we heard about this morning, the leadership from County Executive Braveboy, as well as all of our elected officials and their leadership. Amen. But to get started, I want to tell you a story about electricity set in 2030. in Baltimore City, but this story could also very well be set in Prince George's County, Maryland, my home. So Keisha was excited for her family to rent their first net zero home. The home had LED bulbs, was used very little energy, and had solar panels on its rooftop. The windows had special coating that kept the house warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Her family didn't need to run the heater or air conditioning as much. Appliances in the net zero home were super smart. The fridge, washing machine, and even the television were all chosen because they save energy. And the water heater was powered with the sun as well, using a special solar water heater on the roof. Keisha didn't have to worry about high energy bills anymore. Their home solar panels provided all the power they needed for their family. I want to tell you another story more generally about electricity and what we envision for our grid in the future. Again, also set in 2030, could be in Baltimore City, Prince George's County, or anywhere else throughout the state of Maryland. Programs that can subsidize solar energy. A team of experts came to Rashid's house for the first time to improve energy efficiency while air sealing and supporting greater insulation, and then installed new solar panels and fit together perfectly like a puzzle. Rashid watched the excitement as they finished the installation. He was even more excited when his electric bill showed that the weatherization and solar improvements helped him save money. I think we can all see ourselves in these types of stories where the reduction of emissions, the improvements of environmental quality actually has a tangible, meaningful impact on your quality of life, as well as cost savings for our lowest income residents across any jurisdiction, but across the state of Maryland. I want to tell you another story about transportation. This is about Alejandra, who is thrilled to have moved into a transit-oriented community in this neighborhood that has everything designed to be conveniently accessible without a car. The streets, have wide sidewalks, perfect for strolling and riding, designed to be conveniently accessible without a car. Streets have wide, each school day, she walks to the nearby public transit wearing her backpack and arrives at school on time. And on weekends, Alejandra's family explores the city together. They hop on a bus or train to visit local attractions like the zoo, the museum, the farmers markets, or even visit their nearby cities. It's so much fun to leave the car behind and still get wherever they want to go without creating pollution. The cleaner air has reduced how much Alejandra needs to use her inhaler. I think any one of us could add to these stories in terms of what other improvements we want to see as it relates to how we interact and traverse our environments, the public impacts, the public health impacts and improvements that we see, and how we ultimately want to see our children in future generations enjoy that environment. And I'll tell you one more stories, and then I'll ask for some ideas or contributions for folks in terms of how we can improve these stories or these goals for the future. This last story is about Camille, who was very glad that Baltimore, or Prince George's County, has its own composting program sponsored by the Department of Public Works. They had set up special bins in parks, schools, and neighborhoods where people could drop off their food waste. As her neighborhood's no waste leader, Camille and groups of volunteers taught workshops and visited schools to show everyone how to compost. People learned that organic materials like banana peels, eggshells, and leaves can be decomposed and turned into helpful environmental amendments or soil amendments. As time went on, the composting program became a way of life. People were amazed at how much less trash they were throwing away and producing in their homes, and how much healthier and cleaner their environments had become. Can I just hear a shout out? How can we improve some of these stories from folks who can see themselves in these stories and see the types of improvements that you want to see here in Prince George's County or in your neighborhoods? Yes. Okay. But yeah, so Just to kind of sum it up, in Baltimore City, similar to what we heard from Prince George's County, Maryland's government, and all the climate leadership we hear happening here, we do have goals to reduce emissions by 30% in comparison to our 2007 baselines by 2030, and to be carbon neutral by 2045. We really see and center all of that work on equity and environmental justice, and so I'm so happy to share that so many jurisdictions across the state of Maryland and our state leadership share in that vision for a more sustainable, equitable, and resilient future. In much of our work, a lot of our engagement that we do as it relates to climate action planning and implementation really relies on robust, meaningful and authentic engagement. We're roughly achieving around 70 to 80,000 unique interactions every single year, connecting with residents across the city of Baltimore, and sometimes regionally as well, to really better understand what it is that our residents want to see and how we can ensure that we are implementing our work in such a way that improves your quality of life. One of the things, or the anecdotes that I'll share during our climate action plan engagement, was in particular when we talk about reducing emissions, and climate action plans are often a roadmap to that reduction. What we heard from community members was really understanding air quality and how we're improving air quality. And so we did a lot of work to figure out how we can better communicate in terms of using language that is more accessible. Obviously, the reduction of emissions is so central to our work and what we're trying to achieve, but more importantly, we want to achieve quality of life, we want to achieve air quality, we want to achieve public health outcomes in this work. And so now we'll be doing the city's first ever dual emissions and air quality inventory, where we look at both co-pollutants as well as greenhouse gases and other air pollutants, and what we can do to mitigate the impacts of these environmental harms. Thank you so much. Really appreciate being here, and I hope that we can all continue much progress together.
Thank you so much, Ava. And thank you, Mayor Miller and Shannon. And thank you, Katie, for being here. We are going to move on to the next session, but Katie is going to be around and would be delighted to talk with any of you about her work. Can I help you? Excuse me? Oh, let me tell you the next session. We are behind on time, but we are here if you want to ask questions individually. So the next session is starting now. If you stay in here, you will get to hear about climate change and human health. So this is going to be a great session. Next door, we have an environmental justice focused session. And in the theater, we have our Mapping Heat Islands to Improve Equity, Health, and Environmental Outcomes, which is a story of our partnership using NASA data to do local government work, planning, tree planting, and epidemiology. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you there's another break at 1.